Yeah, definitely. They'd be the story of the season if they came out played like this. But I'll take it though. Right now, at least it's making things interesting. That first half is pretty brutal and pretty grueling to cover.
Let me I guess I'll build off of that. Is it as simple as? I mean, I guess one changes the manager. I mean, was it as simple as this team didn't like playing for Sandberg that much? Is Mackinnon that much more organized? What do you make behind this team all of a sudden looking like it has half a care?
I think it's a combination of, Rhino's gone. I don't think they responded well to him. He didn't communicate with these guys, and it was just kind of like there was no energy in that clubhouse. And Pete Mackinnon is much. He's just a more personable guy. He talks to the players. And that's a big deal, You want to play for somebody that you like and that you get along with, and that doesn't mean that guy has to be easy on him. But somebody you have a relationship with, a guy that you feel like you want to run through a wall for. So I think that definitely is a factor. But I also think it's these young guys just playing more and getting more comfortable at the big league level. And I definitely think that's the case with guys like Cesar Hernandez and Freddie Galvis. Michael Franco has just kind of gotten a little bit more comfortable as the season's gone on, and so change of manager and those young guys just getting more comfortable, I think, are the two biggest factors.
Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, covers the Phillies. Obviously, with this play, and Pete's name's been brought up, is he getting closer and closer to becoming a legitimate candidate? Is he already one, or would he just not even be considered?
I think he is playing himself into consideration. I mean, it's when they named him as interim manager, Ruben, for whatever reason, came out and said, he is not a candidate to be the manager next year. He's just the interim manager. But now, they're not going to keep this pace up. I got to think they're not going to keep this pace up. But if they play well throughout the rest of the season, you almost have to consider him for the job that he's done. He took a team that was so dead. I mean, these guys were lifeless on that West Coast road trip, finishing out the first half before the All-Star break. And they came out and they have played with a lot of energy, and they just look so much better. And I think, you have to reward the guy, at least give him some consideration. I mean, it's almost the point where how can you not at least have him in for an interview, or at least make him a candidate next year?
Obviously, yeah, the team has done something different, and I don't know what he's done to be, you said personable. Somebody said that he actually speaks Spanish. Is that true too? That he can actually speak to the Spanish players and stuff. So it seems like he's a guy that. Do you get the feeling that the players are starting to endorse him a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. He does speak Spanish, so and that definitely does help, because I think there are like 11 or 12 Latino players on the roster. So that does help. But again, you go from it's sometimes a lot of people say, like, well, why do they need the manager to talk to them? These guys are getting paid a lot of money. They should just be professionals and play. And that is true to an extent. But Ryan Sandberg, pretty much had no relationship with these guys. Going back to what I was saying earlier, he was never in the clubhouse, never talked to guys. And Pete will talk to guys. He already said, listen, I've talked to Cesar about playing time. I've talked to Freddie about playing time with Chase back. I've talked to all these guys about how it's going to work. He'll bring guys in and talk to them. I mean, those are things that did not happen, and there just wasn't much energy with Ryan Sandberg, and there is energy with Pete. I think players kind of feed off that. They're kind of I definitely think they're more relaxed right now. I definitely think they're more relaxed and having a lot more fun.
Chase Utley is a guy who, 189. He was hitting 179 until this weekend when he came back and looked pretty good. Is it as simple as, his ankle must have been that bad that he looks like a guy that is rejuvenated all of a sudden?
I think it's partly the ankle. He said to me on Saturday and to us again yesterday that he does feel healthier. He also said he figured out something mechanical in his swing. Now, what that is, he's not going to tell us. But he says there's something mechanical that he figured out, as well as the health. But certainly in these games this weekend in San Diego, his bat speed looked a heck of a lot better than it did the first half of the season. And best case scenario right now is Chase Utley plays great this month and they can trade him to a contender down the stretch, because I think he sees the writing on the wall. He sees he's probably not going to be back next year, and he's going to be a free agent. So, hey, why not get a head start and maybe try to win another World Series somewhere else?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Todd. It seemed like he has kind of weakened his stance a little bit, as before it seemed like he wasn't really interested. And now it seems like, I'll listen to whatever they have, and almost for the betterment of the team, he kind of said.
Yeah, I think so. He says out of respect for the Phillies, I'll definitely listen. He was definitely more hardline in it. In spring training, he left the door open a little bit. He said, listen, I don't want to go anywhere. I want to stay in Philly. I love Philly. But, hey, you know what? If things start going bad and they start trading all the veterans on the team, I might have to reconsider things. And, hey, they traded Hamels. They traded Papelbon, Ben Revere, Jake Diekman. Clearly they're going in another direction. He sees Cesar Hernandez playing well. He sees the fact that his option isn't going to vest for next season. He's going to be a free agent. He's probably not going to be back. So you add all those things together, and I think Chase Utley says, you know what, if they come to me, if it's the right situation, I got to listen to them, because it just, I'm going to finish the season as a part-time player, then I'm going to be a free agent next year. Why not get a head start? And like I said earlier, take another run at the postseason.
Well, we were asking this question on Friday about him. Is it more likely that he gets traded or is back with the Phillies next year?
I think it would be more likely he gets traded. I do. I don't see a scenario, quite honestly, where they re-sign him. Now he's got a $15 million club option. That's not going to vest because he's not going to hit those 500 plate appearances, but that's still a club option, so they could pick that up. He has a $2 million buyout. I guess technically they could re-sign him. I just don't see it happening unless there was a situation where, they cut Ryan Howard loose and they bring back Chase Utley to play first base. I mean, that would be the only scenario I could see him maybe coming back, because Cesar Hernandez is playing so well. And I think they just want to continue to give him a look in this rebuilding process. So I think it's more likely he gets traded.
Yeah, I mean, he's in a really weird spot because most likely he's not going to get to 500 plate appearances, which means the Phillies would be able to buy him out for $2 million and then maybe bring him back at a lower price. Would that be the one scenario where they don't trade him, they buy him out, and then bring him back?
Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. Yeah, that's exactly what happened, because they would be crazy to pick up a $15 million club option on him. So yeah, they would have to buy him out at $2 million. Yeah, because right now he's a little bit over 250, probably like 260 plate appearances. So we looked it up this weekend. He would have to average like 4.7 plate appearances per game every game the rest of the season to hit 500. So it's completely not going to happen at this point. So they'd have to buy him out and then try to re-sign him if they wanted to do that. But like I said, I just don't know that, they still have Ryan Howard at first base, and I just don't know if they're going to want to bring back both of those guys next year.
Todd Zolecki, MLB.com. Utley was placed on waivers, which means they have till 4 o'clock today for someone to claim him. Is that the way that works?
Yeah, there's a certain time period to do it, and I'm sure, I'm fairly certain he will clear waivers unless it's a team that's interested in them, like the Cubs, the Giants. One of those teams. The Angels are interested in him, so I guess one of those teams could claim him, and the Phillies can try to work out a trade. And I guess there's always a possibility they just let him go, but I think they definitely want to try to work out a trade with him first.
Todd, I know it seemed like Dominic Brown was kind of like an afterthought, and then he was in the minors, and then they kind of called him up. But I guess he's been swinging a decent bat as of late. Have they maybe reopened the possibility of giving him another shot next year?
I'm not sure yet. I think they're going to have to see him really finish the season strong to do that. But at the moment, they really don't have too many options in terms of corner outfielders. They have some guys coming up through the system right now that they like. But, if he finishes the season strong, he's hit 4 home runs, I think, in his last 8 or 9 games. And, finally showing some power. I mean, he basically had gone like 2 years without showing much power for a corner outfielder. So if he does that, then I think it'll get interesting, because I think there are some people in the organization that were probably ready to move on, and some people weren't, and now there might be a little even more interesting kind of back and forth between those two parties if he continues to hit well. Because I think another possibility, if I'm the Phillies and Dominic Brown plays great, I'm trying to trade him somewhere. I would just try to sell high and then move on.
All right. Obviously, they made the big trade. They got 5 prospects back there. September call-up soon. Any of those guys being considered to be brought up?
Well, I don't think Nick Williams. He's the guy that they really love, the outfielders in Double-A Reading. I don't think he's going to come up. Jake Thompson's still in Reading. They have a couple of those Eichhoff and Alsher possibly could be called up, but I don't think there's any rush with any of those guys. I think Aaron Altair in AAA, he's a good candidate to be called up. But I don't know if they want to rush too many of those guys up right now, but certainly not. And I stunned right now if Jake Thompson also was up before the end of the year. And those are 2 of the 3 top prospects, and Alfaro, the catcher, is injured right now.
Spring training next year, you think any of those guys push for an opportunity? Spring training should be a little bit more interesting next year, but any of those guys you think have a shot to push for a spot next year?
It's possible. I think the more likely scenario, unless one of those guys comes in and plays great in winter ball or something and has just an unbelievable spring training, I think you could have a AAA team for the first time in years that I can recall with a legitimate prospect team. Last several years it seems like it's been all 6-year free agents, kind of like journeyman ball players that can't really catch on anywhere. And next year you could have J.P. Crawford, Nick Williams, and then they could probably bring those guys up, continue to play them at that current pace, and then kind of sprinkle them in as the season goes on. And I think what the Phillies are thinking right now is, let's just be as patient as possible. Let's bring them up when it's the right time to bring them up so they can have the most success because, hey, they're not going to be a winning team this year. They're not going to be a winning team next year. So let's not screw up our prospects and set ourselves back another year or two.
All right. Todd Zolecki, everybody, MLB.com. The one thing that you look at the team like the Astros who lost 92 games and now they're in first place. I guess people have accelerated expectations so quickly when you're a fan. You say, man, that team was in last place, and then you can be this good that fast. And sometimes I guess patience even gets criticized.
Yeah, it definitely does, and I understand that because you see these guys in the minor leagues playing well, and I'll get a lot of people say, well, the Phillies never call up the prospects when they're young, but that's really not the case. Because they'll point to Bryce Harper and Strasburg and Mike Trout and Stanton, and the Phillies haven't had prospects like that even remotely close in this organization since really Utley was coming up through the system, and he was a college player. They did their drafts over a 10-year period have been terrible. So that might be kind of the perception of why the Phillies, don't call up their players. They wait too long to call up their players. J.P. Crawford is a guy who could be in the big leagues next year, and he's like 21 years old. That's a pretty young age for a guy to be in the big leagues. So but again, I think, and frankly, I agree. There's no sense in bringing a guy up before he's early, just to see what he's got, just to get his feet wet. Why not bring him up when he's going to enjoy success, and you don't shatter his confidence, you don't set him back. Look at what happened with Dominic Brown. They brought him up too early, they sent him down, they brought him back up, they sent him down, they brought him back up, they sent him down, and he's kind of a mess. You wonder, looking back, if they should have just kept him in the minor leagues another year and then brought him up maybe when he was a little bit more prepared, and maybe he wouldn't have had all these ups and downs.
Well, it should be fun at least getting ready for spring. At least it feels like, Todd, that there is some interest again. It seemed like there was apathy, and apathy has at least turned back into interest or intrigue to see, all right, let's see what they got. So you got to give them some credit for what they did at the deadline to get apathy out and interest back in.
Yeah, definitely. The trades, by all accounts, you talk to people outside of the Phillies organization, people I've talked to, they actually did a pretty good job there. And the other thing that's helped is a lot of these guys are hitting, not necessarily, not just the guys in the minor leagues, the prospects, but look at the lineup right now. You have guys that are hitting 280, 290, 270, Franco, Galvis, Hernandez, guys are getting on base and being productive and doing damage, and everything just looks a lot better when you can say, hey, we've got some young hitters that actually have the ability to hit the baseball.
And don't forget Herrera, who's been on fire too.
Herrera. I knew I was forgetting Herrera. That's another guy. Rule 5 draft pick. He was the 7th player taken in that draft. This guy is really come on. I looked it up the other day. He's hit like about 350 since the first week of June. I mean, that's a heck of a find for a Rule 5 guy. Usually those Rule 5 guys, don't pan out. They get sent back to their original team, or they end up being, Michael Martinez or David Herndon or whomever. And this guy could be a legitimate player down the road.
Yeah, the Victorino was a nice Rule 5 pick, center field. Yep. Maybe they found another one with Odubel Herrera. Todd Zolecki, MLB.com. The Phillies taking on Arizona tonight, a 9:40 East Coast start time against the Diamondbacks. Thanks, Todd.
Thanks.